Today I'll go through all of my settings for KBM so that you can be sure you're setting yourself up for success no matter what rank you are. So this first gameplay panel is mainly just personal preference. If you want to make queue times quicker or play with people on other platforms, then make sure that cross-platform is enabled. For the game stat display level, I leave this on main stats only so that my screen isn't constantly flooded with notifications. For the most part, I try to disable any unnecessary settings, just so I can focus on the game and not worry about anything that can be distracting. These are the camera settings that I have been using for a while now. Although I have definitely changed these many times since I began playing, I've stuck with these current options for I would guess the last 2 years or so. I would highly recommend having your FOV at 110 as it just means that you can see more of the field. I've gone between 240 and 280 distance, but I find 260 to be a great in between. A lot of people like 110 height, but personally I find that 100 is better for dribbling as I can see the underside of the ball a bit more. You'll notice that my swivel speed is quite high, and that's because I like being able to tap my camera swivel button just to get a quick glance at 90 degrees to the left or right of my car, and this allows me to do that pretty easily. For the longest time, I had my transition speed at just 1, but I recommend turning this up to eliminate that unnecessary fraction of a second where your camera is switching from the ball to forward facing. Honestly though, if you take any of these settings I have here and alter them by between 2 or 3 notches either side of these current settings, you'll be in the green zone. If you want some more options, here are the camera settings for some of the best KBM players in the world. Feel free to try a couple out and see which you like the most. So I often get questions about this keyboard aerial safety option. Pretty much, if you have it enabled, you won't be able to tilt your car forwards after leaving the ground before you press another button. So if I permanently hold W and jump, you'll notice my car stays flat, even though I'm holding W after my car leaves the ground. However, once I press another button, such as jump again, air roll, or another direction key, my car will start to tilt forwards. If I untick this option and do the exact same thing, you'll notice that my car tilts forward straight away as would be normally expected. As soon as this option was introduced, I turned it off as I always want my car to move in the direction I expect. You could leave it on, but personally I don't see much benefit. The majority of the settings on this page don't apply to keyboard, so you don't have to worry about them. Some of mine are changed from default because occasionally I play with a controller, but that's pretty rare. For my bindings, the majority are default. However, I have my jump on space because before Rocket League I primarily played FPS games such as CSGO where jump was always on space, so I was pretty used to it. I don't think that there's any advantage whatsoever to have jump on space instead of a mouse button, it was just a personal preference. Make sure you set power slide and air roll to the same button. I have mine on shift. The reason you can have both set to the same button is because air roll can only be used in the air and power slide can only be used on the ground, so they'll never interfere. I have my arrow left on left control and arrow right on mouse 4. That's one of the buttons on the side of my mouse. To be honest, I very rarely use arrow right, hence it's in a bit of a weird position. From my perspective, as long as you have easy access to at least normal arrow and one of the directional arrow buttons, you'll be perfectly fine. Finally, my camera swivel left is on Q, camera swivel right on E, and camera swivel down on mouse 5, the other button on the side of my mouse where my thumb rests. I think it's quite common for players to put arrow left and arrow right on Q and E respectively. Personally, I've never been a big fan of this as I feel like I want my index and ring finger on A and D pretty much permanently, but it's up to you. In the interface settings, I would definitely recommend turning up the nameplate scale to 150%. This makes it just that little bit easier to spot players on the field, which is extremely useful, especially at higher ranks where awareness of the other players' positions is absolutely vital. I don't like seeing the insanely weird arena colors when I come up against a club team, so I turn the forced default team colors on. Pretty much this means that the arena will always be the default orange and blue. I turn off the ball cam indicator and ball arrow as part of that effort to reduce clutter from my screen as much as possible. I definitely suggest leaving both of these on until you are perhaps around platinum or diamond, as they are very useful, but personally I find that after playing for thousands of hours they don't really help me much. Your video settings definitely need to be tweaked for the performance of your computer. I think all the settings here are pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just let you look at my choices without talking about all of them. However, make sure that transparent goalposts are enabled, as disabling this just puts you at a disadvantage when trying to defend from within the goal. I think the first thing I do whenever I install the game is turn the music off. I've always been someone who likes playing my own music choices via Spotify or YouTube while I play, so I don't want to hear the game music over the top, but some people really like it. So if you enjoy the in-game music, be sure to leave this one on. That goes for the player anthems as well, which also play music when a goal is scored if that player has a theme equipped. I also disable the ambient and crowd audio options, unless you want someone going, "What a save!" every time you clear the ball. I'd leave it off. Here are all of my current chat options, although I'll be honest, I think the only ones I use more than once a week are need boost, nice one, and thanks. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe and check out my rank up guide videos for more advice, or take a look at this video that YouTube thinks you'll love.